So this newly refurbished property went to sealed bids with lots of high offers on the table, and along comes Kenwood damp proofing company and finds apparently rising damp, but in fact there is no rising damp. There's condensation from lack of ventilation, lack of dehumidification, and insufficient heat for the amount of vapour in the air. The other problem is that it's been damp proofed, and as you'll see from seeing many of my videos, damp proofing causes more problems than it solves. You've got to deal with the root cause of the problem. Have a look at the thermal images. You'll see that the damp areas line up with where all the cold spots are. The dots are dots and dabs. The cold square sections are where the damp proofing treatment has taken place. That's where the damp proofing treatment is.
Okay.
So this is dry lined, and then this is the damp proofing treatment. And so what happens is the vapour goes through this dry lined wall here, and it goes behind the back. This damp proofing treatment is essentially impermeable. It's like plaster, or it's like plastic or glass.
Yeah.
And the vapour gets absorbed behind and goes all the way down behind. So it's illustrating what's happening, but the solution is going to be to run a dehumidifier, and I'll sort your ventilation out as best I can, and then it'll be fine. But it will take a long time to dry out. Be aware. Well, theoretically 6 to 9 months, but it doesn't stop you from selling it. Yeah. You just have to show them my report, and then that'll explain everything. Okay. And I would get them to read it, including their surveyor. But before you accept any offers.
Okay.
That, you know, if they're not going to, if they're just using damp proofers to try and renegotiate the price, like it was 50,000 that they were asking.
The Kenwood was 10 grand, but then they said, oh, outside the whole back pavement needs to like.
Yeah, but they were using it as an excuse.
Yeah,
weren't
I know, and
they?
I thought, you know, like, and then they said we had to rebuild the front wall, like it wasn't only damp related, but I thought, are these people wanting us to pay for their whole renovation?
And how many times have you had this place damp proofed? You said.
Well, in 2009, before we bought it, it was done, and then when we renovated it, the builder did something.
Yeah.
I don't know what he did, and then in July this year.
July this year. And then still within a few months, you know, Kenwood comes along and says another 10,000. Yeah. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to have a look on the outside. I'm going to look at your ventilation, and you know, ultimately, if you follow my recommendations, it'll be fine. But it will take more. I'll show you a couple of tips as well.
Yeah.
Literally, all the high damp meter readings in this property line up with the cold spots. That's because the cold both causes condensation, and when water evaporates, it causes heat loss. It's very interesting here. There's the cold water pipe feed to the top floor flat, causing heat loss. And at the bottom, you'll see that there are high damp meter readings. 999 is a high damp meter reading. Below that, anything below 300 is considered dry, depending on the wall. So it's dry there, and then it's damp there. It's because it's got the cold water pipe. Corners will tend to be colder because there's increased external surface area, so you're more likely to get dampness. Likewise, at the base of the wall, it's more likely to be damp because gravity pulls moisture down, so any condensation forming higher up the wall will be drawn down. A damp wall, damp plaster, damp brickwork is a poor insulator and therefore increases the coldness and increases the risk of condensation, and it becomes self-perpetuating. It's very interesting looking around this property, especially the dot and dabs, the little round circles. If you see another one of my reports beginning of this week, you'll see condensation forming on the dot and dabs, and the tenants there mistook that for a roof leak, and there was an insurance claim, I believe, and possibly a lot of money and time and angst spent on not fully understanding what was causing the problem. People tend to blame outside rather than consider inside vapour. Every property is at risk of condensation and mould unless you use dehumidifiers and ventilation.
So that's number one problem. The extractor fan isn't going outside from the kitchen. And that's actually really cheap and easy because you got an external wall, you just somebody to drill pipe. Costs like £200 to solve that. And that's an easy fix. That is a blocked up trickle vent.
Yeah, but this thing that you were looking at before. And they did dry their laundry like over the radiators.
Oh, tenants do that, but you shouldn't do it without a dehumidifier. I mean, it should be made illegal, but you know, the extractor fan isn't working very well. So that's number two problem. It's running about 4 litres a second. It should be running about 15 litres a second. Just taking a box and I'm going to make a hole there. And then the beauty of this is that you can hold it up to the outside and test the outside. Whereas I'll show you the official equipment, it's just too bulky and surveyors don't carry it as a consequence. With this, you can just get it in a bag. Yeah. Most of the time you only need that, you don't need this as well. It's just cutting a hole there. Yeah, it's with a bit of Velcro. We're going to have it on meters per second. It doesn't really matter because there we go. Oops. About 1 meter a second.
I'm all about encouraging surveyors and homeowners to understand the root causes of damp and to understand ventilation, and it's so easy to just test the exit vents, and I wouldn't have been able to do it had I not created my own equipment. And more importantly, I wouldn't have been able to identify the root cause of damp, which in this case is the extractor fan is not venting out from the bathroom. So no wonder there's condensation everywhere.
Standing up by itself, which is great because then I can film it. We can see that there's basically no air coming out, no air at all. Look. So I'll test the inside just to make sure the air's coming, flowing out. And this is the official thing. Now, you know, how many people, you couldn't even get it up there. You'd need a ladder. How many people, it's so unwieldy. This is the professional kit that's sold for about £500 as opposed to the box, which sells for, well, you can pick it up from the supermarket with anything. This pipe here is attachable and detachable. I can't promise you it's going out, but there's a good chance that it is. Yeah. So I think you need to get somebody to open this up because they'll need more access. Attach duct to the back of the fan. I'll set up the fan so it's working better anyway. Even, you know, obviously it still needs to be ducted out. And it'll take them half a day, but get them to do the kitchen. They'll charge you probably about £400 to do it.
Is this like a builder?
Yeah. It'll be a general builder. I mean, you won't get a normal builder. They want bigger jobs, that's the problem. But I can point you in the direction of a couple of general builders in this area that might be able to help. And then that will solve it. That'll be. But use a dehumidifier and fan in the meantime.